Another week of 49ers football. Welcome, everybody. We're going to loop in our friends on Twitter and tweet this out so everybody can watch. And the 49ers are 2-2, headed to play the final remaining unbeaten team in the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals. So this is going to be interesting. It's going to be a test. Obviously, everybody knows about the drama surrounding the 49ers and the quarterback position. We won't really know anymore until Wednesday because so much of what happens moving forward is dependent on Jimmy Garoppolo's health. And those of you who are familiar with my weekly roster breakdown show know that I'm going to go through all of the positions in the spreadsheet here. I'll make it bigger a little bit in a second, but there have been some roster moves. The most notable one has come at kicker, where Robbie Gould might be heading to injured reserve, but he almost certainly won't be available for the game at Arizona. So I'll go through that. I'll go through some of the practice squad transactions, and obviously I'm going to talk about the quarterback position, where everybody again is jumping off a cliff right now, trying to make some kind of overarching prediction or ultimatum or whatever they want regarding what the 49ers will do. But the truth of the matter is it's not going to be nearly as reactionary as people are suggesting. Same thing happened toward the end of training camp when people were calling it a quarterback battle that actually wasn't a quarterback battle. The 49ers are still evaluating Jimmy Garoppolo's health. And as you saw from Trey Lance's performance, they need to give him some more time to knock off some of that rawness coming out of college. But there was some stuff that I liked about Trey's performance. I'll get further into that. I've already recorded a video about it. First, I want to summarize the Seattle game because I didn't have a chance to do this yesterday. I was in transit yesterday. So very quickly, we are going to take a look at the 5 keys for the Seattle game to see how the 49ers did. And it's remarkable to me because they actually did execute most of these well, but you'll see where the fatal flaws were. Slow Russell Wilson early. Check. The 49ers absolutely did that. He had negative 12 yards after his first 5 drives. Convert early third downs. Check. The 49ers did that. They moved right down the field, took a 7-0 lead. Even on other drives, they were converting third downs. But obviously, ultimately, they stalled out because of a missed field goal from their backup kicker, Mitch Wishnowsky. So that Robbie Gould injury really hurt them because that would have made it 10-0. And then, of course, toward the end of the half, that third down conversion percentage for the 49ers started falling off, and the Seahawks tied it up. Exposed Jamal Adams and Seattle's blitzes. I actually thought that the 49ers exposed Seattle's defense really well early. I mean, that first drive and then 200-plus yards in the first half. 49ers couldn't get out of their own way, though. I mean, the situational football got worse and worse, whether it be because of Garoppolo's calf injury or something schematic. It just didn't, they had all the components there. They were putting up the yardage, but they weren't putting up the points. So I would say that this third key they kind of executed, but kind of not. Definitely not enough of it. Number 4, set a tone up front against the run. The 49ers absolutely did this early in the game. It was the best their linebackers had played this year. Maurice Hurst was a big addition for the 49ers off IR at defensive tackle. And the 49ers stonewalled Chris Carson in that Seattle run game early. That led to those 5 drives and negative 12 yards. Obviously, the defense wore down in the second half, but I think the 49ers established this. They set the tone up front against the run. And to me, it was the offense's fault for not giving the defense enough help, because you're going to see every defense start to break against the really good offense if your own offense can't do that complementary football. And then here's a key one, the key, pun intended. Number 5, keep winning at the special teams margins. Entering the game against Seattle, the 49ers were really good in all phases of the special teams game, but they absolutely cratered against the Seahawks. I mean, it started with Robbie Gould straining his groin in pregame warmups. That meant that Mitch Wishnowsky had to kick. He missed the key field goal and a key extra point for the 49ers. So that didn't work out. Trenton Cannon, gunner for the 49ers, inexplicably fields the ball at the 1-yard line and rolls with it into the end zone instead of trying to throw it back. That was a big error because this 49ers defense at the time was playing in such a good fashion that they would have been in legitimate safety or turnover to touchdown creating opportunity at the 1-yard line. Instead, Seattle got touchback field position. Then obviously Trenton Cannon fumbled the kickoff. That was in the third quarter when Trey Lance was already in. And that completely destroyed the 49ers because that allowed the Seahawks to go up 2 scores. And since Kyle Shanahan really didn't trust Trey Lance throwing the football in that game, the playbook was so pared down. It was very obvious. The 49ers wanted to keep it at a 1-score game. Trenton Cannon's fumble on the kick return made sure that wasn't possible for the 49ers. Lance falls behind 2 scores. 49ers get lucky that Seattle busted a coverage on the long Deebo Samuel touchdown. But for all intents and purposes, this was firmly in the Seahawks' control after special teams botched it for the 49ers. So you could see through those 5 keys, the 49ers accomplished some of them, but they failed so miserably at other key junctures, and their offense as a whole, it was just so unusual that they were so efficient yardage-wise and first down-wise, but not points-wise throughout most of that first half. It detonated everything else. And against a magician like Russell Wilson, you have to be on all your P's and Q's, not just some of them, which is why the 49ers lost the football game. Okay, it's time to go through the roster. This is the weekly exercise here. So we could start with the quarterback position, and this week it's fitting because there is movement along the quarterback front, or there might be movement. We'll see. The 49ers right now are undetermined with what they might do coming up next because they're still waiting on a health update for Jimmy Garoppolo, who's right here, and who has a calf contusion. So worst case scenario with Jimmy Garoppolo dodged when he started talking about something in his calf snapping or going. I forgot what word Jimmy Garoppolo used for it, but my initial reaction during the press conference was, ooh, that didn't sound good. That sounded like Achilles territory. So worst case scenario would have been something like an Achilles. Second worst case scenario would have been something like a calf strain for Jimmy Garoppolo because those are notoriously stubborn. Calf strains stick around. That's also the case with George Kittle's health situation. There was some fear from the outside last week that George Kittle had suffered a calf strain, and that would be something that the 49ers would really have to worry about for a longer period of time. But it turned out that Kittle's was more of a calf contusion, just a bruise, and so was Garoppolo's. This could still be extremely painful if you just envision what led to this injury. It was Kerry Hyder, former 49ers defensive lineman, stepping and falling on Jimmy Garoppolo on the first drive. I mean, that's 300 pounds of weight coming down on a calf. It could have been a cleat too to the calf. You can see how that could really hurt. George Kittle, he suffered his calf contusion, his wear and tear in weeks 1 and 2. So in the short term, these injuries can seem like, oh boy, this is something that can really compromise a player, and it did for Jimmy Garoppolo in that first half as he wasn't able to get that plant foot down. It was on his right leg. So it was a situation where he had to take himself out of the game, and we saw Trey Lance in the second half. Garoppolo was still in pain on Monday. The 49ers will reevaluate him on Wednesday. If that pain has subsided, if they deem that he's able to get both legs underneath him for Sunday's game against Arizona, he will start. No question about it. I mean, anything else being peddled around there is reactionary stuff that's not really properly evaluating how Kyle Shanahan is looking at this or how Kyle Shanahan should look at this. Let's just, again, briefly talk about Trey Lance's performance. It was rough. He is raw. I do not blame Trey Lance. Again, this is not a black or white thing. I'm not anti-Trey Lance or pro-Jimmy Garoppolo. I advocated for the 49ers to draft Trey Lance back in January, far before they made the trade. I do think that Trey is the future for Kyle Shanahan. He is a mobile quarterback with an immense physical skill set who Kyle Shanahan can groom into a play-action, pocket-based passer that is the best of both worlds. But right now, Trey Lance is a ball of unmolded clay. It's going to take a while for the 49ers to get the type of polish and refinement from Trey Lance, considering that he has only 318 college pass attempts under his belt. There's an argument to be made that, because Trey Lance is so raw, but because he does have such a potentially high ceiling, that he should just play all the time, play right away right now. Well, guess what? The 49ers aren't the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have not punted away this 2021 season. This is still a very talented 49ers roster that's very, very close to being 3-1, and I would argue not too far away from being 4-0 if some other stuff goes right for them. The margins in this league are very, very thin. And even at 2-2, the 49ers are only 2 games back, and they have a chance to eat into half of that lead this week against Arizona. The bottom line is that we're not even a quarter of the way through the season, and the 49ers have a short-term and a long-term plan at the quarterback position. Short-term being Jimmy Garoppolo, because he's obviously more polished and more efficient than Trey Lance is right now, and the long-term plan being Trey Lance. They wanted to intermingle the short-term and long-term plans so that Trey Lance could come in on package play, and so Trey Lance could get some game action this year, so that way some of that rawness could be worked out. But they didn't want to use this as some kind of training grounds for Trey Lance and punt away the entire 2021 season. And if you watch Trey Lance's second half, he's missing guys. He's not seeing the field. He's missing guys downfield that are open. So we're talking about Brandon Ayuk on one of those play actions. He's tucking it and running it too soon for Kyle Shanahan's liking. And please do not shoot the messenger. I'm just saying what's obvious based on the film. I spent all morning watching the Trey Lance all 22, and it matched the eye test from what I saw during the game. The throw to George Kittle, that's a big window in the NFL. Trey Lance left it a little bit high, a little bit behind him, and George Kittle gets crushed in the end zone. It's stuff like that the 49ers are going to want to see. Quicker release time, smaller windup. Mechanically, I'm not an expert, but in an ideal world, Trey Lance emulates Deshaun Watson's throwing motion. Deshaun Watson's obviously more elongated than Garoppolo. You're not going to find hardly any quarterbacks in the NFL with it just a quicker, tighter release than Jimmy Garoppolo. That's his strength. You don't expect Trey Lance to have that type of release, but you also don't want to have a Colin Kaepernick style release from Trey Lance. You can't have that big of a windup. So something like Deshaun Watson's release, that's fine. And I think Trey, a lot of parts of his game, a lot of his physical skill set, might be comparable to Deshaun Watson's. Now, can he develop into that type of player? We'll see. But the rawness was on display against the Seattle Seahawks. And Kyle Shanahan knows this. He knows that the throwing portion of the game, because Lance, and that North Dakota State offense was a run-first offense, because he only threw those 300 passes some 2 years ago, he knows that the throwing aspect at this NFL level, because nobody just walks into the NFL and takes over, he knows that this is going to be a process. And that's why they didn't call a single pass play for Trey Lance on his first drive. The 49ers were scrambling on that first drive, right? So they need, they needed more time. And thankfully for Trey, I think it was big for his confidence. Seattle did bust that coverage. So they're able to find Deebo Samuel downfield. But we saw, recurring issues later. Even though he threw a fastball in there, I think it was to Mohamed Sanu a little bit later, Bobby Wagner almost picked it off because that release wasn't quick enough. I mean, in the NFL, elite players like Bobby Wagner are going to sit on cues. They're going to be able to step in front of some of those throws. So even that fastball couldn't get to Mohamed Sanu in time, and Wagner got it. I mean, it's stuff like that. You see the promise with Trey. I thought that he did a good job sensing the rush in the pocket, but he wasn't seeing the field. And that really did impress me. I thought that he did stand in the pocket. He did sense when the pass rush was kind of collapsing on him. And a lot of times rookies will be completely blind to that. They have no peripheral vision. But he did step up and he did make some nice runs. That 4th and 10 pickup was really impressive for me for Trey Lance. But he's got to put it all together. And unless the 49ers have firmly resolved to just punt the season away, they're not going to use every game as a 60-minute training grounds for Trey Lance. Now, if Garoppolo is unable to go this week, or if they feel that he's not nearly close enough to 100%, and the 49ers don't want a reprisal of Miami, I think it was week 5 of 2020 when Garoppolo was playing on one leg and it obviously didn't turn out well, then they're going to be forced to play Trey Lance for all 60 minutes. And if that's the case, Shanahan is going to have to pare down the game plan. And that should help the 49ers a lot and Trey Lance a lot. Here's the thing. In summary, at the NFL level, to consistently win, and this has been proven time and time again throughout the history of the league, your quarterback to consistently win, remember the word consistent here, is going to have to make 25 to 30 on average good decisions from the pocket per game. Now, to win one game, or maybe win two games, or maybe even three, before you get to that consistent level, but to win in a one-off situation, you might not have to have a game plan that requires 25 to 30 good decisions from the pocket per game. And maybe if Garoppolo is not ready to go for Sunday, this might be one of those opportunities, because Arizona doesn't really have film on Trey Lance yet. Kyle Shanahan can tailor something very specific to his current raw skill set. He can make a very read option heavy game plan. It would really help the 49ers to have Trent Williams available for that, by the way, and Elijah Mitchell, because Elijah Mitchell, the running back, I mean, he's got speed. He could stretch the edges. And Shanahan could, maybe even toss in a couple early deep throws that Arizona isn't suspecting, something that takes, in a weird way, a little bit of pressure off of Trey Lance, because he struggled with the short ones. I mean, he bounced that one to Kittle to start. Maybe something where he can just uncork it and not think about it can get him into a better rhythm if he has to play against Arizona. And if Shanahan can tailor the game plan to him, I think he could get away with a smoke and mirrors read option game plan mixed in with a few big throwing attempts that Trey Lance connects on. And I think the 49ers can potentially be competitive. Would that be sustainable throughout the course of a 17-game season? No, it wouldn't be sustainable, because, again, it will always come down to defenses counter-adjusting and the pocket-based quarterback having to make decisions from the pocket to take those defenses to task over the long run. But the 49ers right now are still thinking about this on a week-to-week basis, as they should. They're 2-2 in one of the most competitive divisions in football. It's only week 5. The bye is coming up. Trey Lance is still really raw, and nobody knows what Jimmy Garoppolo's health situation is. You shouldn't be looking ahead to week 10. You shouldn't be looking ahead to 2022, week 3. No, you need to be looking at one game at a time, because the pendulum can swing quickly in the NFL, and the 49ers have already demonstrated that they do have some firepower on this team. That pass rush looked really good through 5 drives against Seattle. Overpowering 2019 level good. You have seen some nice stuff from Sermon. You've seen Deebo Samuel play like the best receiver in the NFL. The secondary with Emmanuel Mosley looked a lot better this past week. And obviously, you've got guys like Kittle on your team. So this is, far from a lost cause from the 49ers, and they can't play it like it is. They have to make sure that they're looking at the week-by-week basis while also considering the big picture. And that's why, if Trey Lance has to play, you just cross bridges as they come. And it's going to be super interesting to me. We're going to find out Wednesday what Garoppolo's status is. And B, if Garoppolo's status is not good enough to play, it's going to be super interesting to see how Kyle Shanahan architects this game plan. Now, even if Garoppolo does play, I think that the events of the past week have only underscored the need to give Trey Lance substantive action during every single regular season game. I understand why the 49ers shied away from it against Philadelphia. The offense got off to such a bad start that they never developed leverage, and Shanahan never felt comfortable about putting Trey Lance in the game. Against Green Bay, he put Lance in only when he absolutely had to at the end of the first half on the goal line, but we didn't see much of him after that. And then obviously Lance didn't come in package duty in Seattle, where I think it's in the 49ers' best interest to follow their original plan of mixing and matching Garoppolo and Lance. That doesn't mean a firm timeshare. That means that Lance comes in at situational opportunities where you can leverage his skill set while minimizing the downside. I mean, that's what the 49ers practice during training camp. That's what they practice during the preseason. So for all that Kyle Shanahan wants to say, that was just to dupe Detroit in week 1, no, I don't buy that. Kyle Shanahan was clearly trying to do something that allowed him to have his cake and eat it too with Trey Lance, to get him game action that contributed to the 49ers' early success despite him being raw. And with Garoppolo now getting hurt, with that rearing its ugly head again, you cannot risk having Trey Lance come into these games completely cold turkey. I mean, it didn't end up well. Nobody can objectively say that the second half ended up well for the 49ers against the Seahawks. They were tied at halftime. They lost by score, and they probably should have lost by a little bit more. I mean, the defense kept on bailing them out there in the second half. It was not a good second half. It was a limited second half, and a lot of that was because because Trey Lance had to come in cold turkey. If you involve Trey Lance earlier through some of this package style action, you would hopefully have a situation where his feet have already been wet in that game plan, and he's at a functional level, at least to throw on the first drive, or actually handle a 4th and 2 as a quarterback instead of forcing Kyle Shanahan or encouraging Kyle Shanahan to run a jet sweep to Deebo Samuel that doesn't work. So I think that Kyle Shanahan needs to start operating with his quarterbacks a little bit more efficiently. Guys, I'm going to be back here in just a second. I'm going to take a quick little break here. Have a couple things to take care of.